everyone. We have some announcements before we get started. Mass Wildlife is requesting public input regarding changes to hunting regulations. This is primarily to support bow hunting to improve the population. In the packet, there's information on how to participate in the listening sessions and all. Mahjong is being offered every Wednesday from 1 to 4 in the Sage Center. So, do that. I'm interested, but I work today, so. No. So someday I'll be able to. Warrant article requests for Springtown meeting must be submitted to the town clerk by the end of business on Monday, February 2nd. There's a land conservation workshop next Wednesday night at 6 p.m. in the first floor hearing room. This is being held by Greenbelt and in partnership with the Open Space Committee. Select board chair office hours are going to be held this Saturday on the second floor hearing room from 8 to 10. I have people signed up from 8 to 9, so I'll just be here for anybody that wants to stop by at 10. And finally, call for volunteers. There's a complete list of openings on the town webpage on the volunteer tab. I know conservation, any others that you're aware of, things for pass?
The ZBA needs associate. I'm trying to think what else.
On this the key one. Yeah. Okay, and the regular business item is public comment. Does anybody wish to make a public comment? Here, one. Okay. Item B, town manager updates.
All right, the first item is we had a meeting yesterday with Mass DER, that's the Division of Ecological Restoration. This follows on the work they had done during fiscal 25 to do some preliminary assessment of the culvert on River Road down by the farm field. Their work last year was very preliminary, but we did hear from them in the fall that they had secured funding to take that to a higher level of design, still a conceptual level. So there had been some correspondence in October, November, and then they had to go through a formal procurement process and getting the contractor under contract. As I explained in the memo, and I think you know from prior discussions, this is a situation where the state agency is contracting with an engineering firm, which is then providing service on this culvert. It's not specifically for the town, but obviously the town would be closely involved, but it's not a contract we would be managing. So we had a meeting yesterday. We had Butch was there as well as Dan, Paul Savigny, and Caitlin Barker. Really good kickoff. I think the key takeaways that we expressed, we did have a copy of the draft scope that DER had put together with the selected consultant Ty and Bond. We emphasized a couple of things. One was that, you know, the further they can go with conceptual design, the better. Part of the scope does include identifying 2 different alternatives for review in a public process. We emphasize the importance of the public process, as many meetings as they could accommodate within their scope and budget would be favorable. And we said we would do our part to get the people there once dates and times are set, that we would do the outreach so the consultant can keep their time focused on the technical work. Their deadline to complete whatever work they're going to do under this contract is June 30th. So we have to be realistic that it's only going to go so far, but it is a benefit. We talked a bit about the fact that there's, in the long term, there may be changes on River Road, whether that's in terms of the road elevation or that kind of thing. But because this specific culvert is on the kind of westerly edge of the study area, it was felt that, you know, there could be accommodation for that. The design, for instance, if the size of the culvert resulted in a higher elevation, that would kind of naturally tie into the upward slope heading west from there. So it's just a kickoff meeting. We didn't go into great detail, but we got to know, you know, the project manager, who was the same as last year, and the assistant project manager for the consultant team. and we established kind of the lines of communication for going forward. They also have in their scope culvert in Gloucester. So those are going to be the two locations that Ty and Bond is looking at on behalf of DER. Georgianne Keir did indicate pretty strongly that they expect this to be something they're going to continue to be funding in for next fiscal year. So while I do think we have to be realistic on how far this is, could go between now and June 30th, it seems like this culvert is, very much on the state's radar, and they're looking at it for their own purposes as well, for the purpose of creating guidance on these so-called transitional crossings, is what they're calling them.
The Gloucester site is seeing.
Yeah. Georgianne actually explained that was part of the delay. It sounds like there were some internal decisions within DER as to whether DER was going to need to cast a new net to identify new transitional culverts, but they were successful in getting the higher ups there to recognize the two they had previously selected and continue to go forward with those two instead of restarting the process all over again. So that was part of why there was a multi-month delay between October and the last few weeks.
So, summarize the scope of what are they looking at? Or just
They're looking at alternatives, but so it's got let's see. So alternatives analysis is the main scope. There's going to be at least one site visit, some data collection, H&H modeling, some base mapping and preliminary design plan development, technical memorandum and cost estimates. I don't know they're going to get that far. And, Georgianne was clear in the discussion with Ty and Bond that part of what the purpose of yesterday's meeting was to get input from the town as to what our highest priorities would be, so that the consultant can focus the time that they do have on what's of highest value. And obviously DER has its own objectives too. So that'll be part of what, is going to be pulling on the consultant's time. They have a budget of $150,000 for the two culverts from now to June 30th. So there will be a significant amount of work done. Our priorities are going to be the alternatives analysis, and there's also something in the scope about permitting guidance on what permits would be needed to modify that culvert.
so potentially shoot on us.
Well, it'll highlight that. I don't think that's news to anybody. So I don't know, I don't know that'll lead to any reforms in the near term, but I think anything that can be done to bring attention to the soft costs and the procedural hurdles that cities and towns face in trying to advance climate resiliency projects, I think is a good thing. Next item, I met earlier this week with Christian and Jake, our IT vendor, on the cybersecurity action plan. I had sent a copy of that separately to the board. I didn't put it in the packet. I was telling Max, does the Patriots post their defensive game plan on the web for like the other team's offense? No, they don't. So I'm not posting our cybersecurity action plan on the web for reasons. So, but basically a very good meeting. I think Christian's doing a great job. The background on this was 6 or 7 years ago, among all the other hats I was wearing, I was the town's designated cybersecurity coordinator. And so when we hired Christian, he came to us with a strong technical background. He's very computer savvy. And so we built it into his job description right at the time of hire that he was going to be what we did when we did the comprehensive changes to the job descriptions in 2022, we formalized that he's our cybersecurity liaison. So when we've participated in these years of trainings, he's the point person, he's the coordinator, and he's kind of reporting data back to the state on levels of participation and so forth. So that's been an enormous help. it's kind of been an extension of my office and, you know, one less thing for us to do. And it's ensured that it's gotten more sustained attention. With that said, I do think that my office can, you know, put more attention toward this, and that is our focus going forward. We put a fair amount toward it, but it's one of these things that's competing with everything else, with people's time, and the trainings that we participated in over the years are they're pretty regular, and people are expected to log in and do the training, and so someone has to kind of crack the whip and make sure people follow through. So one of the items I mentioned in the memo in the packet is kind of the incentives or lack of consequences if people don't perform, you know, or participate in the training is an issue with any organization, but I think especially with one that's as decentralized as ours. So that's something we'll continue to kind of chew on, what, you know, whether there's things that can be done to, you know, for instance, when people get a certificate, it goes in their personnel file, and something to try to better incentivize participation. Jake made the point that you can have all the malware detection and, you know, software protection you want. The weakest link in any organization can be the people. It doesn't need to be, but that's very often the way that you know, bad actors get into a system is through people not managing their passwords or responding to suspicious email. In fact, twice in the last 2 days, including today, we've gotten emails from known vendors to the town uh, telling us, oh, we'd like to get paid by wire transfer. And on their face, they're the same contact person. They're the same person we deal with. And in both cases, we called the vendor and said, is this legit? And no, it was not legit. So, you know, as far as our core team, our finance team, we're very much attuned to these risks, you know, knock on wood. But you know, any organization has vulnerabilities. So I definitely want to commend Christian for the leadership he's providing on this. And, you know, you continue to hear more about this. There are some things we're looking at with a potential cost impact in the FY27 budget. So if so, I'll be putting those into the budget. Nothing that's going to break the bank, and things that are going to be, you know, I think money well spent. Some other brief updates. There have been a couple of meetings since last week's meeting on the capital projects. Chris and Dennis and I, Dennis Lamalfa and I met with Chief Dwyer on Saturday. We walked through the public safety, looked at the police and fire capital items, both for next year and for the future years. And earlier this week, Dennis and I met with Doug Mead and talked over the Park and Rec proposal for the walkway. We went out and walked the site, and that was very helpful. And we're putting together a meeting for next week with water that's going to include myself, Gary Roberts, Mark, and Jack Duggan. So Jack Haley. Just thinking Jack Foley. We are on the earmark contract. This is the $50,000 that we got in the FY26 fair share budget from the state that we are putting toward the library town hall crossing. We're still looking to get that earmark under contract. The state continues to look for more paperwork. We did get some more paperwork today from the vendor TEC, sent that along to the state. So I do expect that to be under contract soon. Once it is, we're going to need to look at the timing for basically advancing the concept plan into a higher level of design, which is going to include a lot of public input and public meetings.
Maybe you can to get to 30% or.
I would have to look back at the draft scope with TEC as to whether it specifies that. The initial concept design, they did do survey as part of that, so that's already done. I'm working with Caitlin Barker and the planning department on the scoping for the comp plan. That's work in progress. I know, Wendy, you were at the planning board meeting on Tuesday night. So I've also reached out to the planning board chair, and I'm looking to get a meeting hopefully in the relatively near term so we can make sure we're kind of getting on the same page with that. I'm working with the summer rec program director. We did rehire Amy Wilson for the, manyth year in a row. She does a phenomenal job. We posted the job as we always do, and we are now have her under contract for this year. So I'm working with her and getting that budget firmed up. The way we handle that is I work with the Park and Rec Commission to get the staffing budget done, because obviously we can't hire the director till we have that approved. And then once the director is under contract, I work with her to get the operating budget updated based on last year's actuals. I think I mentioned at last week's meeting that Chris and I had a very constructive meeting with Mark Marlowe and with Jack Haley in the last 2 weeks on water. Jack has followed up with a couple of additional analyses he's done on financial analysis, which I think is really nice because we're starting to aggregate a bunch of data that I think once it's all put together in a cohesive format is going to really help broaden understanding of the situation of water. Specifically, part of what Jack's been looking at is what do the revenues we pay Newbury Port represent in terms of the share of their overall operating budget, and it's a fairly small percentage, like very small percentage. So we're cautiously optimistic that when it comes time to trying to negotiate a better rate, that might not be as big an ask for them as it would be a benefit for us. So we'll see. But Jack's is really helpful there. On Newburyport, we're continuing to work on in preparation for change order for the bridge. I did connect by phone earlier this week with the new finance director in Newburyport. We had been working with Ethan Manning. He left the city several months ago, so I was able to connect with Amy Serro. We had a good conversation, and we're working to set up a meeting next week. We still do not have the number from our consultant. They're working on that. I was in touch with him again today, and they're working on it. So we should have that any day now, probably tomorrow. We expect it to be fully within what is already appropriated, so it wouldn't need any additional money because the project came in so well under budget in the first place. Let's see, Whittier Regional Agreement. We have another committee meeting in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So I put together excerpts of a lot of 9 different samples on how capital costs and operating costs are allocated, and I sent that around to the committee earlier this week to get people thinking specifically about different allocation models, not just generally. So there's going to be some more work to do leading up to that meeting on February 4th to make sure it's productive and to get the group focused. But I think that meeting is probably going to be the first kind of roll up your sleeves, like talking, not real numbers because we don't know what the project's going to cost, but orders of magnitude, like really trying to determine what is the cities and towns' pain point, and what can they live with. So it's we probably won't get it all done that day, but I do think it's going to be I think we're going to start, some of the kumbaya is probably going to start to fade. I don't know, Chris, what you think?
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, so I'm working with Amanda on the cable license renewal. There's an ascertainment process, and I'd seen that word kicked around, and I'd read the guidance from town council. We got a memo from them back in December outlining all the steps, and I wasn't totally sure what it meant. So we set up a call earlier this week with town council. There's a new attorney there that we haven't worked with before, but she specializes in cable franchise agreements, and she gave us really good advice. And turns out the data that we've been tracking all these years, I know you've seen the spreadsheets that Jenny maintains in terms of costs and revenues, and we know, where all the dollars go, obviously, but we have it like very clearly organized. That's all exactly what we're going to need. I had a question because, you're actually presenting these numbers to the cable companies, and this is kind of the basis of your request of what monies you're looking for from them. So I just wanted to make sure I understood, what the numbers are and what they aren't. But once we're ready to actually engage with the companies directly, we'll work with the board because you guys are the licensing authority, but we're setting the groundwork. Finally, two other brief things. I've been working on a updated handout on the dog leashing to better communicate the dog leashing requirements. We finalized some signage that we finished up, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Mill Pond Committee was very helpful on that, and Wendy was involved with that. We got that design finalized, sent it up to Butch and Caitlin, and they've got that off at the vendor, getting some new signs fabricated. Once those come in, those will be posted around Mill Pond and Pipestave. And we're working on a handout, and really the change there that was needed was to create a better map. So I asked Max to work on that. He did a great job. So I think we've got a great handout. The only reason we haven't printed 50 of them yet is we have a web link on there, and it's just a matter of time. We're going to have a new website with a new URL. So we thought maybe we should wait till that's set before we hit print. But other than that, the handouts are ready. Yep, those will be sent out with the dog license information. And then just, obviously this time of year, budgeting and articles is a major focus of time.
Action items, item A is a request to appoint a new select board designee to the agricultural committee. Ross was our designee, but has asked for us to fill that role. Do that. At this time, I'd like to, there's a discussion item A, discussion of farming in town of Lake. The committee would like to take that now. Here, that's a. You want to give us the rundown? I have a question.
Well, we're a new committee and we're still trying to get our feet underneath us and find out what the select board expects, particularly related to town-owned land. And my first question is, what's our role? Are we advocates for the farmer? Are we advocates for the town? Or are we neutral facilitators in, any leasing or licensing we have? And what is the, now, we don't own, and we don't control them, we know them. But do we work with committees on behalf of the town? What would the select board like us to do in those roles?
I'll comment on my vision for it, because I'm the one sort of brought up. We have a lot of lands that's sitting fallow. I mean, you got the Dunn, you got the back of Pipe State, I'm sure there's probably a half dozen other parcels. You provide yourself on agricultural use, which I think is great. When I'm sitting fallow, it's really bothering me. So I was gonna say, let's go to the ag committee and see if they can come up with a plan. I think the thing to do would be to first assess which parcels would be realistic.
Which would be our list, I think that's.
And then what things can be done on them, because I know that Mill Pond at one point got excluded from row crops, and we took the grant from the state to dredge Mill Pond. So you've got to look at the context of how that is, what can be done and done. So I know he at one point Dunn had the right to still farm first. I think that's over, right?
I believe Colby has a license.
A license.
He does.
That's different. But we bought it from Dunn. Dunn had the right to farm it for a non-specific time frame. Pretty sure that's passed because somebody's doing hay and that thing. So again, I think to look at the parcels, what could be accomplished on them. What restrictions, obviously what I'm dumping tons of chemicals, things like that. What would be the downsides and the negatives? I would even think possibly a list of potential commercial farmers to engage and find out what possibilities they would have. And we know that there's Kimball, Tendon Crop. I'm sure probably
Right. And I know some smaller farmers that are would love to have a place to get hay.
or to other crops. I suspect that once, say, we're looking to have people caretakers of these properties, people might come forward with things we hadn't even thought of. And I think it's poor stewardship of our properties, not to, just to let them go fallow, so.
So do you see the ad committee as acting on behalf of the select board or like engaging the farms directly? I mean, I think that's what Rich is asking.
I don't think you get into a contractual obligation, I think you inquire as to what their interest potentially could be. And at a certain point, bring it back to the select, and say, where do we go from here?
So you have developed a list, right? You did not share that with me, but.
So, yeah, I thought it sent it, but yeah, there is a list of, well, we've got a list of 6 different properties. But it's, who do we represent as a board in this? Do we represent the farmers, the selectmen? Are we neutral facilitators? That, that kind of sets the tone of how we approach it.
Yeah, my opinion is you're representing the both. You're acting on behalf of the select board, but your mission, is to run this farming, right? You agree?
Yeah, and I think it's trying to start too. You can't just say, hey, we signed a contract, I think you can represent that this is what we're looking to do.
Right, here's a contract, it will be the neutral facilitators. Where both sides trying to come up with something that's agreeable. And then present that for signatures. So it's more the neutral, I think the neutral facility, we're facilitating, we're trying to get a deal done. As opposed to representing
I
one
would go to
side.
the contract first, I was find out what their level of interest and how that plays into the parcels and what they need, what the town would need, and then come to the select one and get to the next step, which would be a contract, but I wouldn't jump too far ahead.
Right. Then that comes to the question of looking, short term, I think the best we could do this year would be to license 1 or 2 farmers. This field 1 year, you get the hay, or something like that. Looking longer term, there's some we may want to lease to a farmer, where the farmer invests in improving the soil, perhaps putting fencing around.
Those are the kind of issues I think you gotta look at first, because, the licensing agreement, 1 year, they're not gonna wanna invest a whole lot.
Right.
So the farmers will tell you what they need a 5-year lease because of the upfront investment and things like that. But those are the key components. First of all, is there an interest? I sort of hope there is. And then how do we cultivate that with them?
We're getting a little bit of interest without doing any advertising or working on it.
Yeah.
And, looking, for example, we looked at the town stove, had a field that they to put a long-term lease on for Christmas tree farm. For Christmas tree, you're probably talking 10 years, before everything is up and running. With improvement for the land and, but we also have to understand the town's needs. We acquired this property for a reason. And if suddenly it's needed for water or for school or something like that, we need to write, we're gonna have to look at all of the version, right?
So is a license agreement the correct or short term? You think that's the correct?
So, as you know, a license agreement is revocable at any time. So it's something that doesn't represent any commitment or any stability or security for the party, for the private party. It's got obvious advantages for the town because it's very flexible and can be revoked. In the event of a lease, I do know that any lease of town land, that's a property interest, and that is something that I believe pretty strongly would be a town meeting authorization. So that's something that would need to be accounted for. I would also say, we can't overlook procurement. The same laws that govern purchase of goods and services also govern sale of goods and services. So it comes down to what's the dollar value. So for instance, the town right now, leases a couple of properties. one of which the dollars generated annually are below a certain threshold. And under procurement, that can be extended with sound business practices and without the need for an RFP. One of the other leases, the Children's Castle, is above a dollar threshold. So that is something we have to rebid every 3 years, and which we do. So I think in any conversations you have with prospective private parties, it's always important to say, you know, it would be subject to whatever applicable disposition laws. So that isn't necessarily a full RFP. It could be a much more low-key thing. It depends on the dollar value of the asset.
What are those thresholds? Because that's one of the, I Stowe did an RFP.
Mhm.
And, you know, we want to make sure we don't step on any procurement rules as we're.
Yeah, they updated them in the last year or two. So I will tell you what I think they are, but they did change recently, and I think I'm accurate. But they used to be much lower. It used to be like 0 to 5,000, then it was 0 to 10,000. I believe it is 0 to 25,000 is can be purchased or sold based on sound business practices, which is a fairly, you know, there is something behind that when you go to the Inspector General's office is the state office that oversees procurement. There is guidance on what does sound business practices mean, but it's a, you know, it's kind of what it sounds like. Above 25, you have to solicit 3 quotes. You do not have to receive 3 proposals, but you do have to have documentation that you contacted 3 bona fide, you know, prospects. And if only one of them submits a proposal, as long as you have a record that you solicited 3 quotes, you're covered. It's got to be a legitimate process. Then above, I think it's above 50,000, that's when you're into a full RFP that goes to the state central register, which is published by the Secretary of State's office every week. That's a much bigger process in terms of documentation. So
Using these dollar figures, they per year or contractual cycle, or what is it?
so when it comes into leasing or licensing, I would want to look into that. I do know that the Learning Tree we do as a 2-year lease, not a 3-year lease, because that keeps it within the less onerous burden, procurement.
That's
So
where I was gonna go with this too, is this, I don't even want to purport at all to think that this would be a money, revenue generator for the town. I would just like to see the land in agricultural.
well, it's not necessarily anyone paying. It could be the value, like what's the market value? And I don't know. Well, I don't know. Procurement's complicated, and I don't want to be like saying, all I can tell you is it's complicated. The answer can be found. I just don't have the answer right now.
That's
So
one of the places that have to start that.
yeah.
Cable.
So
I don't know how they based it. This is what we did. You know, it's probably a 10-year lease on Christmas Tree Farm. That may well get up into those ranges. I think most of what we're looking for in the short term is to be smaller than that. But what's my resource to?
So Caitlin Barker is our procurement officer. So my advice would be, if you send, and I'll brief her on this. I haven't happened to talk with her about this issue. I know she keeps her ear to the ground on what's going on in town and agendas, so she knows about the ag committee and so forth, but she wouldn't know about this conversation. So, I can let her know that you'd be contacting her, but I don't think she's going to have the answers off the top of her head. She is certified with the MCPPO certification. So she has been to all of the trainings and classes, and she's gotten a credential, but this is a fairly boutique area in purchasing. It's different than buying a truck or whatever. So she may have to research it, but she will research it. She will get the answer. She's really good at that. So her email address is dpwadmin@wnewbury.org. She's the DPW business manager, and the procurement is part of what she does for the town. So
The farmers might be a help too, because I know Matt Endicott doesn't own most of his properties, he does a lot of leasing.
Okay,
So he could probably contact him, let you know what different agreements he has with different landowners in the towns.
Okay, yeah, I can talk to Kim Wool and Bolton and so on.
I'm wondering if it's too ambitious to think about having this kind of things, because you're on the season.
It is,
Yeah, okay, just want to make sure we're not gearing up. And
right,
all
but
we were looking for the list of property, but it's, so, I mean, we certainly talk about.
I think the best we could possibly do is to, license one or two fields, maybe the one or two, with farmers. And leave the Colby lease for the Dunn fields in place.
Is that active?
I believe so.
That any license PPC.
Well, that's-
yeah, it is active, and we have a current certificate of insurance on file with that license agreement. That goes back many, many years. Yep,
I have a copy of it. And we just haven't sat down and done the detailed analysis. I think about it 2 minutes before the last tag to be
Oh,
done.
okay, so,
And I mean, if you're interested in the list of fields,
great.
I'll send it to you, but basically it's Middle and Indian Hill. There's,
Andreas.
there's Andreas right behind it. There's, Dunn's Fields, which there's 3 small fields. There's a backfield on, Hill Pond that you talked about. Mingo property has a field down on the backside towards the river, off of White River. And then the last one is Moulton Street and Cherry Hill. There's a field, you don't really notice there's a field, but there is one.
Legalize that.
It's between the reservoir and Cherry Hill Road along Moulton Street.
Okay.
It just doesn't look like a
Is that
field,
all
but
invasive stuff? Invasive work.
it sounds like it.
I wouldn't be surprised, there's 8 acres that.
The thing I'll say on that is the time we purchased that, there was some chemical contamination, so. Oh, that I want to be looked into.
I think you had also talked about soil analysis, potentially being this, right?
Right, it was one of those things, I was talking to someone at the East Coast Camping Practice Health, I said, oh, call this guy. And he says, well, I'll be out there tomorrow. Which didn't happen, but do we have authority of, if it's small dollar? Is that something we should do, or we could put it on the farmers to do their own testing? You know,
I mean, I would prefer to have a program like for us all to know how this is gonna work and potentially put funding. I mean, how much are you talking about? $100?
John, do you know what those normally cost? Yeah, I thought it was like $10 or $15 each, and the question is, do you do 4 per field, or do?
I'm sure it's a ratio.
Right. But yeah, I will get a program together. I've kind of put in loft and it started snowing. Stop, it's left me alone.
So Chris, you, the committee is interested in, say, 2 fields. Out of the ones which just listed.
It'd be licensing agreements.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
those are better because
Just for one season. If in fact we want to do that.
Right.
To get-
I don't think they have a preference, I would leave it up to them to
Yeah.
decide what the needs of the farmer who might be interested in. If we could just shoot them in the back and yes.
I think one thing to look at, which I think we discussed, Rich, is whether these fields are currently being targeted for, invasives, removals, or, meadow cultivation for needs. So,
Where would I get that information?
can check with the Conservation Commission, probably the Conservation Agent. Yeah, I know we have some questions, I just.
Yep. Yep.
That,
That, yeah, this gives us quite a bit of, further guidance that we need. And having you on the board will give us a lot more guidance. Thank you for taking that.
Sure. I think the idea of 1 and 2 with the license is a great way to start and find out how to develop it further from how those go. Really good concept.
Don't expect us to do a lot right away.
No, I much prefer to start slow, and I mean, I want this to be a good program for the town, so. Catherine, did you have a question or a comment?
I did, thank you. I came into this discussion a little bit on the late side, and the audio is breaking up on you folks, so I just wanted to make sure I understood a few things. Rich, you answered one of my questions in that you named off a list of fields that you think would be good for this program, and I'd love it if you could forward that to me.
Cool.
And the other question I had, and I think you answered this, Wendy, but I wasn't sure because you were breaking up. Has various departments like Conservation Commission, will they be brought into the discussion to make sure that these fields in question are good choices, or are there any conservation restrictions on any of the parcels, that kind of thing? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, and I recommended that Rich touch base with the conservation agent to answer some of those questions.
Great, okay, thank you.
Sure. Lisa, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the audio is difficult tonight. Angus is very clear, Rich is clear, but Wendy and Chris are not so clear.
Audio input, you could send to the out.
Adjusting that, so.
Okay, thanks. Rich, question was, are these farmers that you're talking to for possible lease of these lands, are they West Newbury farmers?
The one that I've been talking to is a West Newbury farmer.
Okay. I'm not at home, so I don't have the bylaw right in front of me, but I think there is some language in the bylaw around that. Catherine might be able to clarify that. Around West New, I remember there being an issue with that, whether we were including farmers outside of West Newbury. So as far as the right to farm bylaw.
You can take a look at that, right? Look at that.
Wendy, can you talk, and Lisa or Catherine, can you tell us if Wendy sounds clearer now?
Does this sound any better to either of you?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like it had defaulted to the, it was using this as the
Oh,
microphone and
okay.
not the
Not
audio.
the audio.
So thank you for pointing that out.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
I didn't, how would the bylaw address this? Because this is something we sort of thought of along the way.
I'm not sure. I seem to remember some points to residents, whether it's supporting West Newbury farmers or I do know that members of the Ag Committee have to be West Newbury residents. So we'll look. I don't recall, but yeah, this is a new program that wasn't thought of when we were in the bylaw. One question for you or for the committee is, would members of the committee be eligible to lease these town properties? There may be a perception of conflict of interest there.
We've not run into
Okay.
that problem yet, but I can see several years down the road there being issues, but we deal with that on town committees all the time.
Yeah, something to think of.
If a family member of mine wants an abatement from the Board of Assessors, I'm out of the room for the entire discussion. So there's ways to deal with that.
Okay, good.
Any other questions?
Catherine?
So I was thinking about Lisa's question about, who would these potential plots of land be, allowed, who would be allowed to possibly farm them? And the bylaw does clearly state that we are supporting West Newbury farms. I would think that having someone coming from out of town and using our fields wouldn't be in line with our bylaw. So you guys can look into that, but that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if there's a question of a West Newbury farmer versus non-West Newbury, that would be an issue.
I would give preference.
Well, I think you could Yeah, craft the RFP with
Yeah.
a preference for West Newbury, but we already have somebody on done, are they local or not?
Or not,
Right,
that's,
so,
that's cool.
Yeah, I think the RFP would be the right mechanism to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and these days farms, it's not like 100 years ago where farms were where you could walk to or drive your horses to. You know, our maple farm, we're tapping in Topsfield and Amesbury and Salisbury as well as West Newbury.
mhm,
That's just the way farming is done these days.
yeah.
You take the land where you can find it.
Mhm.
but their point to prioritize West Newbury, if there's two people competing, would be a good thing to consider.
Oh, yes, and I definitely would keep that in mind.
Yeah,
But rather than let it go fallow, I would rather have
that's
someone from out of town do it.
great. Well, I appreciate the committee's efforts to engage the select board early and make sure we're in alignment. I think that's really helpful going forward.
Well, thank you for your guidance.
Sure. All right. Let's see, item B is to consider potential revisions of the contribution rates for retirees' health insurance. We have some retirees here with us tonight.
Thank you.
So in the packet for tonight, there's some results from a study that we had hired a consultant to do. Angus, do you want to kind of summarize what's in here or?
Sure, yeah, and I'm also gonna just hand around, this is the supplement that I sent around yesterday that the treasurer collector had put together. I know there was included in the packet, there was a list of some other towns and what their contribution percentages is. This one that I had sent around an email yesterday is more our market basket, if you will, or our comp town, so I didn't get this till after the packet went out, but this is good data, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we had engaged our actuarial consultant, KMS, back in late 2024 to do a standalone study. They do our OPEB actuarial assessment every year, which is required for audit. So we had hired them to do a standalone study of what the cost impact would be to the town if it was to increase the town share of retiree contribution for different scenarios. We're at 50-50 right now, which is the state mandated minimum. So this looks at if the town went to 55% contribution, 60% contribution, or 65%. And what this report from January shows is the long-term actuarial assessed expense of that. So that's over the kind of the very long term based on current retirees, but also projected retirees and taking into account lifespans and all the things actuaries do. So she had estimated a total kind of life cycle cost of what you see here in the memo, $345,000 for a 5% increase up to almost 1.1 million for a 15% increase. So that's, far above what would be the cost impact for a single year. So I worked with the town accountant, put together these numbers in the memo in your packet. This shows what we carry in the current year budget for retiree health insurance is about $74,000. So in the at the different scenarios, that would increase anywhere from $7,500 up to about a little over $22,000 if you were the 65% for next year. So this would be basically the 1 year impact roughly. And this table here excerpted from the KMS report is more of the life cycle.
What is the life cycle based on? How many years? 10, 100?
No, well, this is why I said in my memo, if there's questions like that, I really want the actuary here. I'm not an actuary.
I don't wanna say it's useless, but it is, because you don't know what that.
Well, but I think she could speak to all of that, and she is available to come to a meeting. It's not free. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But
So it's
she's-
not like a rule of thumb that life cycle means 10 years.
oh, there may be,
Yeah. Okay.
if you were asking an actuary, but I'm not.
Got
You don't even play one on TV?
Don't even play one on.
But, so the 1 year cost from year to year, does that change significantly? Does it get exponentially over time? Does it increase? So how do you get to go from, 8,000 a year to, 3 or 700,000 is a big jump,
Uh,
right?
yes, yeah, yeah,
In my brain, there's a huge disconnect between these two
right.
sets of information.
Right, yeah, so I think that's a great question, and what Wendy had suggested, because we did confer on whether we wanted to have the actuary here. And what we thought would make more sense would be to get whatever questions come up tonight. And we can send those to her, we will obviously pay for her time, but that would be more cost effective than having her come to a meeting, or if she needs to come to a meeting. Yeah, but that would be a good question, is what's that,
What's the time frame
yeah.
on that?
yeah.
So can you describe,
But just to finish answering Chris's question on where the year-to-year costs come from, every year we receive typically around early November, we typically get the rates for the subsequent year retirement cost, the NetX plan. That is done on a calendar year basis. So when we budget, we're budgeting for. When we budget for FY 27, we are budgeting the first 6 months of FY 27 based on known rates. Then we're incorporating an assumed increase for the second half of FY 27 because it's based on a calendar year. So that's how we budget it. We never know if there's going to be changes in the census or the number of retirees, but that doesn't tend to change much. So, but that's basically how we come up with our budget number. Typically the costs year to year have been fairly modest increase. There was, you'll recall 2 years ago, there was a very significant increase from one year to the next, driven by some changes in, I believe, national healthcare law. So, yeah, that was what I got.
and so the, any increase in the cost of insurance from year to year would be the same for employees and retirees, or could there be?
Oh, no, it can differ quite a bit.
All right,
And just to be clear, the way I read this thing too is when you increase the town's contribution, the participation rates go up, and that's all calculated in.
Right.
Okay.
so
That's part of what the actuary is making those assumptions.
can you, kind of give a layman's version of the OPEB liability? That represents a large part of this, just so people understand like what that cost is.
So it's the other post-employment benefits, so that's generally healthcare. In the up until roughly about 11 years ago, towns audits would account for the town's retirement contributions, and that was all based on actuarial analysis. And then there was a new directive issued, GASB something, which is the Government Accounting Standards Board. It's not a public agency, but it basically sets the standard for how audits of public entities need to happen. So it was GASB, I forget the number, but it came out when I was working up in Maine. So sometime between 2015, 2018, I think it was more on the 2014, 2015 side, as I recall, because it was a new thing when I was working up there. It was a big deal because what it did was, so GASB issued this directive that public sector entities now needed to fully account for these OPEB or other post-employment benefits, which is basically the health insurance contribution for your current retirees as well as your future retirees, which is all based on assumptions and actuarial stuff. So what happened is a lot of cities and towns' balance sheets got worse overnight because they had not been accounting for this. And now all of a sudden they had to account for this. And the bigger the city and town or county or state, the bigger the liability. So the select board at the time here in West Newbury was very forward thinking by establishing this OPEB stabilization fund that started to put money into it. And as you know, from you hear it every year like a broken record, we're in the top 5 communities in the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts in terms of our level of funding for OPEB. Some years we're shown as 100% funded, some years we're shown as 94% funded, but we're in the absolute top tier. And what that means is in the future, when the town is, if there's years, let's say in 10 years, where due to a lot of retirements or increasing costs or some combination, if the town's hit with more costs, the future taxpayers through town meeting could draw from the stabilization fund to smooth the impact on that year's taxpayer. That's how that works. So it's not an automatic draw, it's something town meeting would have to draw from that stabilization fund in the future. So West Newbury's been very forward thinking for a decade or more on funding OPEB. And many cities and towns have no stabilization fund, and they're just when those costs come due, whether that's in 5 or 10 or 50 years, their taxpayers are gonna be paying for that.
Okay.
How does the town and the current employee, what's the percentage ratio of that?
65% town, 35 employee.
So looking at these other communities. Like there's 6 others that are at 50-50.
And just the ones shaded in blue are the ones, this goes back to 2018, this list of communities, Matt DOR put this together as what they felt West Newbury's comparable communities were. The whole list is those that were based on a bunch of factors, but the ones shaded in blue are the ones that they felt, were comparable on both demographic factors, but also geographic factors.
Okay.
So the one shaded in blue, which I'll just read for those at home: Boxford, Hamilton, Newbury, Topsfield, Rowley, Merrimack, Groveland, and Georgetown are, for the most part, what we use when we look at comps on like salary and wages. We don't too much look at Topsfield, but sometimes we do, but the others are pretty much in our market basket for comps.
Okay. Market basket,
That's what
that's what they call it?
that's what the economists call it, yeah.
That's so funny,
Yeah.
but not the grocery store.
No, not
basket.
the grocery store.
I mean, the Demoulas basket?
So the fact that this is from 2018, is it still relevant, do you feel, this?
Oh, in terms of
assignment?
our comps?
Yeah.
I mean, anyone could.
Everybody should change. something.
Yeah, it's subjective. This data is not from 2018.
No, I mean,
The list is from 2018.
yeah, so that's what I'm asking, is it?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think those are all,
Yeah, okay,
yeah. But no, the data's from this week,
no, right.
yeah.
So from those towns, looks like we have 2 that are at 75%, that's Groveland and Newbury. Oxford. Is 50-50, Hamilton is 55-45. Topsfield 60-40, Merrimack 55-45, and Georgetown is 60-40. So, just interesting, thanks for pulling that together.
Yeah, that's.
So do you wanna see if there's any comments from retirees, or do you wanna discuss first, or how do you want to see?
I just need to understand this chart from you.
Yeah.
Actually, that's it.
So do you have any other questions? If Agnes is gonna reach out to her, she probably doesn't have to come if that's the only question.
No, I think the question is simple, that
Yeah,
the numbers in the second chart, the total increases scare the heck out of me.
yeah,
If in fact it's only 7,000 a year, that seems reasonable. So what is the duration of the chart below it, and why is it so disconnected from
is it so
the
much
above?
larger?
What's the town's exposure on a year-to-year basis? I think is really what we need to know.
All right, so you have these questions, Agnes?
Yep. Yeah, so if the board was to set direction that you wanted to increase the percentage, you would see, I think a pretty modest increase in the FY 27 budget. But we would rerun the numbers on the contributions to the OPEB fund, and I think start recommending a greater transfer into the OPEB stabilization fund to maintain that fully funded status.
So then would the question be, what is that greater contribution?
And
I mean,
over
this
what
is-
period of time,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, okay. Good. Any of you Retirees, have questions or comments? So I think we will look to get these questions answered by the consultant and discuss at the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll have information for the
Yeah.
next meeting.
The intent is that we're gonna make a change to do it for the coming budget cycle, so we wanna resolve this as soon as possible. Okay, thanks for coming. Next item is request to authorize an application for an MIA wellness plans. And that was a separate,
Yeah.
so this is a wellness grant of $2,500 to improve the break room facilities.
Yep.
Without, and this has been generally pretty low administrative.
Very, yeah, it's a single sheet of paper, and if they approve it, we just expend the funds and send them the receipt. And,
So really no staff time going forward other than picking
No.
up some equipment.
now it's been a very positive program over the years.
Make a motion to approve the application for the MIA wellness grant as submitted.
Second, in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item D, policy direction regarding the public safety roof replacement project. So anything you want to say on this end? I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah, I think the memo kind of speaks for itself.
So I guess, one factor is, the longevity of the metal roof, versus if we go with asphalt shingles, do you know what that?
I just had my roof done, but
Yeah.
when Brian came in for this before, I questioned why we were looking at the metal. You're gonna get 40 to 50 years out of an asphalt roof nowadays easily. And I think for the delta in pricing, compounded by the licensing requirement that this is, it's ridiculous. Even 195,000, that seemed crazy to me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna suspect your asphalt gotta be well under 1,000.
He thought it would be under 100.
I don't wanna peg the number because I think it's way under.
Right.
I mean, it's not like 98,000.
Yeah,
So theoretically, if I know money over time, but you could do your roof twice in asphalt, get 100 years
Yeah.
versus the metal. And if you have any problem with the building at all, you're still gonna have to address the metal. So I'm actually kind of thrilled it went this way because I would rather see an asphalt roof on it.
Yeah,
So
all right. That what you need?
yeah, I think as I think we've talked about, I want to make sure if we do it, that no one cries foul and says, oh, you said a metal roof, that, legally, the article or the motion language is for a roof replacement, it doesn't specify metal. But when Brian talked this out last year at the article request, he wasn't anticipating a metal roof, and that was what was discussed with the FinCom. And so, I just want to make sure that before we go forward with the new procurement, that we, that everyone's comfortable with that.
So I'm not sure if
Okay.
we can craft language, but my preference would be to say if it can be done for under $100,000. Because I would be very upset if it was, 150,000 for an asphalt roof.
Yeah.
So I think, are we allowed to craft language like that Brian can put it back out for
Sure.
pricing with
Yeah,
cap at 100,000, other than that would require further action?
sure, yeah.
So when is he planning to do this?
Well, they had already put it out to bid and gotten bids, so I confirmed with him and Caitlin that if they're given the direction to rebid it at asphalt, she's already got the bid documents drawn up. She would just change that and reissue it and.
But when they wouldn't do the work probably until.
Oh, no, they'd have to get the bids and rank the bids and, so you could put it in that, a contract wouldn't be awarded until, it could be brought back to you guys if you wanted to.
I'm just wondering if it makes sense to have a new article for this. I understand the motion is what carries and it didn't say metal, but if all the other supporting documentation did, I just don't want anybody to.
Yeah,
as
it
long as
was,
it's not gonna hold
it
us
was
up.
in the FinCom booklet that,
And I don't want a vendor to say, oh, they, 195,000 or 100,000, I want it to be a, true bid. I mean, when you asked, what I was asking is, are we okay going with asphalt? I wasn't necessarily saying, I'm okay, just using the current article to fund this.
Well, I don't understand, I'm fine with asphalt, but why not, why can't you use just the,
Because other than the motion, everything else said metal.
if that makes you more comfortable, fine, but I'm also fine. Going with the asphalt, so either way.
No, I agree, we should go with the asphalt. This is really a technicality.
Right, I hear what you're saying, if you wanna go to town meeting, give their endorsement, that's fine.
As long as it's not holding up the project, even if the procurement was done, I can't see that they're gonna do a roof in March, right?
No, yeah, the roof's not gonna fail before, yeah.
Right, and then, it's steep, you're not gonna be doing it when the conditions
No.
are great, so as long as it's not slowing the project down, that would be my preference, if you don't object. Bring a new article.
But this article still is valid till it expires.
But the article says metal.
Well, the FinCom rationale says metal and the article request form says metal, so, yeah. That was my concern too.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the motion is what
Right,
governs, but that's a technicality that may not be appreciated by somebody in the audience, so.
Okay.
All right with that?
Fine.
so, yeah, I mean, the article request is all written, so we just change it to asphalt and.
Yeah, change the price.
Yeah.
And what happens to that 195?
It would sunset, or it would just lapse, but we would sweep it back into, the capital stabilization. Or whichever source it was appropriated from, which was,
And then the funding for the new one will come back out of that same source, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Should Brian get a new quote for asphalt, just so we have a
Yeah.
better number for?
Mhm.
All right, do we
I
need
mean,
to go?
could they even put it up for pricing?
They could put it out for bid and just make the award of a contract subject to
I would
appropriation.
do that, I
Yeah,
wouldn't
then
hesitate that way.
fine.
Yeah, and then assuming it passes a town meeting, they could sign a contract the next day and get it right into the vendors, so.
That's my preference.
Yeah, that sounds good, so that'd be a special town meeting
Mhm.
warrant. All right, should we vote on that, or Angus?
I don't need a vote for that.
Okay, item E is a request for determination of surplus property. This is name of it, Wellington Upright Piano. Any questions on this, please?
We still have it.
I didn't realize it was a piano in the end.
Yeah, it's kind of sat dormant for a while, and, what's happening right now is Brian's, redoing the annex as part of the funding that was approved last spring, and so he has to move the piano in order to refinish the flooring of the stage,
Mhm.
and so he was concerned in moving it, would it be damaged, and then he approached my office and with this request and,
Great.
submitted a.
I assume nobody uses it.
No, and actually Rebecca in my office plays piano and she went down, she said it's junk and it would be, in her opinion, it's not something that, it would need a lot of work.
We're just looking at the photos even, it's pretty rough, and
Yeah.
piano's not inexpensive to repair.
Yeah,
So this would be up to the procurement officer to figure out what's the appropriate disposition.
yeah, so she could put it up for auction, and if there's someone who wants it, she could, see if it's valued under $1,000, or let's see, it would be, it would exercise her judgment. So she could put it on Facebook Marketplace and see if anyone wants it.
Probably costs more to move it, and it's worth.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll make a motion to declare the Wellington upright piano as surplus with disposition, procurement officer.
I'll second. Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item F is the special event and permit application forms. So I have a concern about this because when this was passed over at town meeting. I had made the commitment that we would have a public discussion about this before moving forward. The application itself is not part of that, but I just feel like that might be a better approach. I don't know if we schedule a separate meeting and invite people to comment. What do you think? Should I move forward with edits on this or?
I just read through Angus, I guess he spoke to you today, he spoke to me.
Yeah, I didn't.
He left the version, yeah, I checked it before the meeting and I'm fine with the edits that we'll put in. But I agree with you, we have it at the next meeting and just have it as a,
A discussion item?
yeah, and there are certain specific people were pretty bothered by it last time, maybe
Yeah.
just contact them and let them know.
Do you remember who those people were? You don't have to say who, do you remember something?
I remember one or two, yes.
Okay. All right.
Just tell them to leave the pitchforks and the torches at home.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, why don't we do that? I mean, Max, do you know if anybody that's been hounding you for this, application has anything
Pardon?
scheduled in the near future, or are these like people booking 6 months out that they're,
It's a mixture.
okay, but is there anything in the next, say, month?
The first event's gonna be in March,
Okay, so.
so it's gonna start to pile up, so I don't know if this policy direction, if you wanna just have us use the old one until this gets
Yeah, that,
sorted out.
if they can wait, I would prefer they wait till we sort it out. But if it's urgent that they have to, I mean, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, my advice would be, let's just use the old form, because I think it's been, people have been pressing your office for
Mhm.
a while now, months. So
But with
Yeah,
good
use the old-
reason though, or are they being unreasonable?
I'm not personally involved, so I don't
Okay.
know. I mean, it might, you know, in fairness, it might be a matter of they want to get the date confirmed so they can
Mhm.
do their planning and outreach, so.
Yeah.
Are we talking
There.
dates further than March?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Because people gotta do marketing, and given how long the process normally takes here. You know, we try to bring it to you as soon as we kinda can,
Mhm.
to kind of have the direction that you'd like us to go in, is gonna be very helpful to us.
Yeah, I'm fine with using the existing form.
It has to come by, it. We can look at it.
Yeah.
So if we have issues that don't coincide with this, we can still deal with it then.
So, what did we say that?
if
Using the
there's
existing form.
applications that come in at the current form
Mhm.
and there's issues, then they'll just deal with it, like they always have.
So,
It just might be a little more cumbersome
so
before.
do you wanna use the old form or the new form?
Old form.
Old form.
I mean, I understand that most of what's in this new form is also in the old form. It's just in a different package, but just to be consistent with what we said at town meeting, I think it's a good idea.
And if I were you and somebody is filling out the old form, I would say, take a look at this form, because these are questions they're probably gonna be asking.
Mhm.
That way they're not surprised when they get here to the meetings. Why do you want to know?
Mhm. I would probably have to do a memo to get all our applicants back up to speed.
Okay, if you could include in that we plan to discuss it at
Yeah.
At the next
February
one.
5th. And if they have comments or concerns, they're welcome to attend that, that'd be great.
I mean, I'm comfortable with the form as it is, but I think we have the obligation to let residents and applicants have their say on it, so.
Yep. And then so the potential warrant article for town meeting would be to allow fees to be collected under this program.
Well, there's a separate, as I think, you know, we're working on a separate article for fees bylaw.
Right, but
And so whether that includes fees for this or for, I think the direction we're going with that is to memorialize all the current fees.
mhm.
We can certainly add, you know, fees for this, that would be fine.
But I thought the reason this was brought as a bylaw at town meeting was because it was collecting fees.
That's right, yeah, you can't, yeah, we can't charge fees for this without a bylaw.
Okay. All right,
So, but in practice, the fees have never been charged other than if something is submitted sooner than the application requires. So over the years, there's never been any fees charged. But then, sometime, you know, in the last 5 years or so, I think the former board, I don't know if you were on it yet, I think was getting tired of getting special event applications sometimes the week of the event. I mean, really, I remember that happening.
yeah,
And they said, you know what, and Rick, you were probably on the board at that time, and the board said, let's put in a fee so that if someone applies, I think it was within 65 days, of less than 65 days, that they would have to pay a fee. So that was only put in really as a way to ensure that the applications were timely received.
Mhm.
And in practice, I don't know if that's really even ever been charged.
Okay. So why did we have the bylaw on town meeting then? I guess that's what is different now.
It was solely because it had a fee in there.
That
So
was
if
the
there was
only
no fee
reason.
in there,
Okay.
everything in this policy is within the select board's inherent authority under Mass General Law to, you know, manage events on public property
Okay.
and manage public roadways and public properties. So
Okay.
other than the fee, there is nothing that is,
So this would not have to go back to town meeting.
no,
Okay.
no, not if there was no fee.
All right. Great. Catherine, did you have a comment or a question?
I did. Let me pull up the form. I was reading the packet, and the special event permit application looks identical to what was put before the town in the fall. Is that a fair statement?
I don't believe it's identical. There's been some editing of it. Is that
Okay.
accurate? Yeah.
So I know I was at the last special town meeting, and there seemed to be a lot of concern over this. So are you going to be broadcasting it to town-wide and offer a discussion or on this matter?
Yeah, we just talked about having it at the next select board meeting for that very reason.
Okay, I missed that. Again, it was just breaking up a little bit. I
Okay.
think if I'm recalling from the fall town meeting, there was some ambiguity over private events on private property that may or may not impact the ordinary use of public streets. If I recall correctly, on listening to people at that meeting, that seemed to be a sticky point. I don't think there was any question about um, things occurring on town property. So for instance, if I was to have a party at my house and invite 100 people, and maybe I have the local barbecue place show up and give food, and I get a tent because it might rain, do I need a permit
Yeah,
for that?
that was the question that was discussed, and the language that's in this, new form is also in the existing form, so that's, that's been the policy and the practice for the last 20 years, but I understand that concern, and that's why I'm saying that we, should get public input at our next meeting.
But to
Okay.
address her concern, if you could park all the cars on your property, you probably wouldn't need a permit.
Right.
So
What
it's
if I
you're
had-
needing-
Yeah, what if I had a tent that was 40 by 60 feet?
Well, there's a curiosity. Angus and I both addressed that today, because I
Yeah.
had such an event a year ago, and I had a tent of that size, and Angus said it's some state regulation that you need to have a building permit.
Yeah, in state building code, there's a certain size threshold, and I don't have it at the top of my head, but there is a size above which a temporary tent needs a building permit. That's not a local requirement, that's a state requirement. So we do want to make that clear on the form that in general, tents are not the town's concern, but if it is above a certain size, it does need a building permit under state law.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just a point of education for the townspeople to be aware of that, because probably on a whole, we really don't, just like Chris said, he wasn't aware.
Right.
So, okay, this is a conversation for another meeting, but I just recall from our last fall meeting that there seemed to be an awful lot of people who were kind of up in arms over this. So I'm glad that you're opening it up to discussion with them.
Yep, thank you. All right, anything else on this? Okay. That concludes our action items. For discussion, we already covered item A. Item B is discussion with the Energy and Sustainability Committee. 3 items. And we have
Yes, so on EV charging rates, we discussed it earlier today. There were some people on the committee who would like to have us lower the rate and encourage people to drive EVs, but the majority view was that it would be best to leave the rate where it is currently. It's in the middle of the range of local charging stations. It's not really an impediment to in any way to people driving EVs. 35 cents seems like an appropriate level to most of us.
Is there any anecdotal evidence that decreasing it would increase usage? I mean, I guess that's hard to say. Right?
You talk to people, some people look closely at what the rate per kilowatt hour is and, but I don't really expect it would make a large difference to most people.
Okay.
I looked at my electric bill, I've got two, I've got my house and my ADU. When I break them down, when you add all the fees in, comes out exactly 34 cents a kilowatt, so it's exactly what you charge it, so.
The town gets it different.
I know the town does, but I'm saying if I had a charge at my house, it cost me the same there, the same here, but there's no negative, it's actually convenient if it's here, so I think it's.
There is a utility program that'll give you a few cents off per kilowatt hour if you charge at night.
Yeah, I think the rate's reasonable, if you're trying to motivate people, I don't have a problem if you wanna reduce it too,
But there are some costs, right? I mean, especially going forward, there'll be maintenance costs, so it is.
Yes. $8,000, I think it is in the account,
Yeah.
approximately.
Yeah, and that's from how many years?
That's
We're coming up on 5 years, the
Yeah.
first things have been in there.
Yep, yeah.
A slow start and a
Yeah.
increasing rate of revenues.
Yeah,
and that's after the bill gets paid, right? I'm assuming.
the electric. bill.
Yeah,
No, we have not paid the electric bill out of the revolving fund. There's been no expenditures out of the revolving funds.
so the town pays the electric bill,
Correct.
so that $8,000 is less whatever the cost of the electric would have been.
Yeah, if we paid that utility bill out of this revolving fund, it would draw down this.
Is that an acceptable use of the revolving fund?
Let's see. Town may incur can spend monies for the operations and maintenance of EV charging stations located on town property. I think it would be fully allowable to do that.
What would you think about that?
I don't have an objection to that.
No, I think that would be reasonable because,
That would be a true cost then, or true.
right, the next question is gonna come up is, what about future? So there was a 5-year, maintenance / warranty plan, purchased when the charges went in, and there was also a 5-year communications plan.
Mhm.
And I don't know how those would be priced now. I assume, but don't know for sure, that ChargePoint would offer another 5-year maintenance and warranty plan.
Mhm.
I guess the question is, how would that be paid the next done, when the current plan is done, which I think will be sometime within the next year. I don't.
It's actually, I think it's this, yeah, I talked to Caitlin about it just last week
Okay.
and, I know I sent you the agreement. Yeah, it was April.
So
was
this
when it was
comes-
signed.
so
It was coming right
pretty much
up.
on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, so,
So I had asked her to contact them to find out what the options were, whether there's an option to extend that and what that would cost.
it seems to me that the maintenance and warranty plan will make more sense going forward than, because we're now 5 years, we'll be 5 years into the life. The warranty plan has been utilized one time
Mhm.
for
That's right.
replacement of the face panels on the chargers at this location. So I have no idea what, none of us can project what might happen in the next few years, whether we look at it as an annual basis or, an extended period of time. Angus, I'm sure you remember the issues, the questions that there were about, can we do a 5-year plan? Is it legal to do a 5-year? plan?
Right, yeah, because the general limit on contracts without town meeting approval is 3 years. So we did actually get a town meeting vote that spring
Right,
to authorize the 5-year warranty.
right. And I think you somehow were satisfied, everybody was satisfied that it was legit to
Yeah.
get the 5-year plan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, and well, and also I think we were prepaying it. That was one of the other.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
we paid for the 5 years
Yeah.
upfront, so.
But there's, you know, so they offered, I think, a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year, and 5-year plan, something like that, and, you know, there's an incremental cost or drop in cost per year if you go for the extended plan, so,
Any idea roughly what the plan costs per year?
I, I don't, quite honestly, I'm gonna throw out a number, but I think I'm wrong.
That's one way to catch it.
Well, I just say I wanna pre-qualify it, but, in the back of my mind, I had this number that it cost about 10 grand.
I think it was
To
less.
cover, that's why
Yeah,
I think I'm
yeah, I
wrong.
think it was
I
less.
thought I had a high number and I just sort of planted that in there thinking it couldn't get worse.
Yeah.
But that was to cover everything, you know, communications and warranty maintenance for, the 2 stations here and the 2 stations at Page School for 5 years. So, but I think.
I was thinking it was more in the like 3,500 to 5 grand, but we have that number.
Yeah.
We definitely have that number.
We probably wanna get, you know,
Yeah,
see what it is currently.
Yeah, we'll,
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, we'll let you know.
so that's for all 4 stations.
Yeah,
So what I'm looking at though is, I'm surprised that the cost of the electric wasn't taken out of the revenues generated.
we could have,
So it's roughly 6 grand when you total up over 24, 25, and 26, for the one from Jenny.
yeah,
So you've got 8 grand, so the 26 cents per kilowatt you charge versus the 35. If you had paid that, would make you $2,000. That's why I was wondering what the cost is on the maintenance, if it would offset that, but it does, you study
Yeah.
into it, so.
Yeah, so not to go too far into the weeds, when you start thinking about that cost, you know, which sort of, you can consider that an energy efficiency type cost. You know, you know, energy kind of cost. Not even thinking about the Main Street solar project, which, you know, nets the town somewhere between $60,000 and $100,000 a year, depending upon everything. The system at Pipestave, at the DPW garage at Pipestave, is probably netting the town something in the range of $1,500 a year, cost avoided right now.
Mhm.
And it paid for itself years ago. So that's just, you know, that's like pure, you know, uncomplicated gain for the town from that each year. So, you know, philosophically, you could look at that and say, well, okay, that could pay for the, for the EV charging stations.
I do think it's helpful to have an idea of the real cost for the stations, regardless of
Yeah.
whether it's over, you know, compensated by others.
No, I agree with you
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, so, but it sounds like there is not enough in the revolving fund to cover both the maintenance warranty cost and the cost of electricity.
Well, we don't know, we don't know what the maintenance
Yeah.
cost, if it's.
we don't know, but
$3,500 for
I
5
think
years.
that's fair. I will get those numbers, but I think that is accurate.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's
yeah,
1 or 2,000 a year probably.
yeah, but, you know, there's if we sort of look at usage, you know, like I know you sent the usage to essentially with the revenue for,
Yeah,
each year,
yep,
and it's increasing. Haven't plotted it out, and, you know, haven't written the equation.
Yeah.
Haven't made the model to figure it out, but at some point, if usage keeps ramping up. At, you know, say your delta, you know, the convenience fee, which is effectively the delta between the actual cost of power delivered and the cost charged. At some point, those lines are gonna cross,
Mhm.
and they'll be paying for themselves, but I don't know where that is right now.
I'm not trying to squash that either, I'd rather have people using them than fully covering the cost, when we get to that point. I would also like to see the account build up a reserve before we say, let's start paying, so that when you hit a bump in the road, we got a little something to cover
Yeah,
it, so.
yeah.
This is just a down the road,
Yeah.
thought, not tomorrow or next year.
All right, so it sounds like we're good with keeping the rate where it is, right, or the cost. And then building in the cost to provide that service, using the revolving fund to pay for it. You're in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
one just little, kind of side comment that Rick will appreciate that. One thing that's kind of bugged me, in the old days, they used to send us a nice little PDF showing, the utilization by day, and it was a nice graphics. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I get those, I have to go log into ChargePoint and download a file.
Oh,
So I just don't even do that,
Yeah.
because it's like, I gotta find my password, and it's,
Yeah.
so it's just a little commentary like it used to, it used to be a little PDF, and I was.
yeah, that
thinking,
was
well, you
changed in
guys-
the last few months, cause I mean, I don't have,
Well,
I don't
do-
get that anymore,
the
but I
thing
used
is,
to get.
they send me 2 reports a month.
Yeah.
One is on utilization, the other is on downtime.
Okay,
And downtime is essentially 0. I think in all the
Right.
5 years this has been, there was like one
well, there
period
was
of
one time, there was one time, there was a minor failure.
But basically, it's 100%
Yeah,
in operation, so that report is of no interest to me. Like,
Yeah.
oh, they were all, it's the other one that I think is of legitimate interest. And I found it a little, it was just, when things work great and then they change it, and it's like, why do I have to log in and download a report? You used to just email me the
That's what-
PDF, so anyhow, it's just a little commentary. I don't know if, I've never contacted them, but I wonder, that would be better, cause I would get that, I would send that to the chair of the committee, and, actually, when Nathan Kelly was on FinCom, he was curious, and so I would send it to him, and it was a nice little report. So just a side comment, but I wonder if I can get back to just having them email it to us, cause that makes it
Yeah.
a snap to share it around.
yeah,
Yeah, my recollection is I would log into the ChargePoint system, and it wasn't a downloadable PDF, it was an interactive, essentially report generator, where you could do cool different things, but it's like, you have to press buttons and do screenshots, and it's not just a file you can download.
Yeah.
So, just a commentary.
since you're on the topic of the EV charging stations,
Mhm.
would it make any sense to try to boost usage of the Page School, chargers? To put a sign up at Pipe Stave so that parents and spectators at the games that are there, on weekends and in the on evenings are aware that there are chargers at Page School. It's not that far a walk, and.
Yeah, our new crossing,
Right,
Yeah, it is.
exactly,
It's actually- it's
particularly,
operating
yeah,
now.
particularly now that the
It's
new
fully
crossing is
operational.
there. It, might make sense, and, the ChargePoint app, I don't know if you remember that, Angus, but.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so the ChargePoint app is set up so that, if you look at the app, the charges are invisible during school hours,
Mhm.
but they appear when the school is not in session.
Oh, so. people
So
may
you,
not-
you can set the time where they're visible on the app.
Mhm.
So that, the goal was that you not have people going up into the school property during school days. And, so if there were a sign and it said something specifically along the lines of, EV chargers located at Page School, but they are not available during school hours,
Mhm.
or something along those
So-
lines.
What do you think about
I
that?
think that's a great idea.
So how many signs would we need? I mean, do you wanna like?
I would think if you had a couple of signs up at
Okay.
that Pipe Stave, that
Yeah.
over time, people are gonna notice them.
Yeah.
And, when it becomes, when enough people know, then you'll start to see the usage.
Can we get your committee to do some wording for the sign and send it back to us, and then we can get it made up?
That would save us time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. The second item is a request to undertake assessment of energy utilization and equipment at town and public safety facilities. So this was an email received from Jack.
Yeah,
Haley.
yeah.
So I think, we can discuss it, my concern with that was that was in preparation for grant applications and other work that, we weren't aware of yet. Otherwise, it's just a curiosity, right, to go look at town facilities. So just wondering what your plan is, with that.
The idea is to understand what's going on in the building in terms of equipment, 25-year-old building,
Mhm.
getting a new roof, right?
Yeah,
Maybe some of the other equipment is aging and developing issues. Jack is a knowledgeable person in these issues, building management, energy, et cetera. So he came up with the idea, maybe we can get Brian Richard to give him a tour, talk about the history of the building, how the equipment works, what issues are there that could be, better managed. And then from that, just come up with more specific ideas about what kind of improvement projects might be suitable.
Mhm.
We don't have a particular grant timeline we're looking at, you know, like Green Communities has 2 grant rounds, I think, per year.
Mhm.
The grant process is relatively simple with them. We've had several projects in the past and it hasn't been a huge burden to process those grants.
Mhm.
So we're just trying to do what we do, and that is look for opportunities to improve efficiency and save money
Mhm.
on energy for the town.
Okay.
And we've done some things here, including with Green Communities and next door. But don't really know anything about public safety, and that's
And was that primarily the building that Jack was interested in, as a public safety building, or?
because we knew the least about it, because it's 25 years old.
Yeah.
It's the 4th largest energy user in town, a little less energy than this building, which is around the same size but much older.
Mm.
So there's some, I don't know, unevenness in some of the data, if you look at it closely, that we're kind of curious about. So just to get a better understanding of potential opportunities to
Mhm.
invest and save money.
Okay.
So, you know, with Green Communities grants, if there is an energy related project, it makes sense to try to utilize Green Communities
Mhm.
funds. But you can't do that you can't turn around a dime on that, you know, you need enough lead time to understand what you do and document what's going to be done and what the energy savings are, in order to make the application, and then you have to wait for the application to be processed and the award to be, to actually arrive. And, you know, that happens twice a year, that at least for the last several years have been 2 rounds per year,
Yeah.
roughly 6 months apart. So, you know, I know I've seen other projects that have happened in the last 2 or 3 years where, you know, I've scratched my head and said, well, gee, if we'd known about that beforehand, then we could have applied for a Green Community grant and, you know, saved some amount of money, you know, whether that number is, you know, $20,000 or $100,000 or whatever it is. I mean, they're, you know, the grants can be substantial. And, you know, they need to be energy efficiency focused. But if we're doing energy related projects anyway, you know, if it's a project that has to be done anyway, then if you can get funding for it, it makes sense.
Yep. Chris, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there wasn't any information in the packet other than it says town and public safety. So it sounds to me like your focus is more public safety building than all the other buildings.
Just in that we know, we've done projects at some of the other buildings, we have some knowledge, that's more of a black box to us, and so we thought it would be worth looking at.
There really
I
are
like to
three-
focus on the public safety, the wording kind of concerned me, it says town and public, if it's all town buildings, that's a much bigger project. If it's public safety, I have a better feel with that,
Do you know how long? Like, is this an hour or half a day or?
that's my question, how long for Brian's time too?
I don't know, we can ask Jack what he foresees, how long would it take to do a tour of the building and to have a discussion about the equipment?
Mhm.
No more than 2 hours, I don't think, and possibly 1.
Does that sound reasonable, Linus?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I would just ask that, you know, you keep the board informed, which you have been doing. I mean, I think this is working out well,
Mhm.
our 2 groups.
Great.
Good.
Can I ask what we have in here?
Sure. Well, we have one more item, but.
Well, no, it's relative to the public safety building. Asphalt roof versus a metal roof, is there any energy savings differential there?
Just based on that, I'm not aware that there's of what.
Okay, I don't want to just all. We go with asphalt, it's like, oh, there goes all your heat, so.
Well,
okay.
well, I mean, there probably is an answer to that, depending upon the color of the roof.
Or the color of the asphalt too.
But the materials, you know, there's different emissivity, so I mean, there really is a difference between materials. My guess is that, you know, appropriately choosing an appropriate roof, metal roof would probably reduce your heating cost or your cooling costs.
Mhm.
You'd probably get better reflectance off it and and, you know, and possibly lower emissivity during the winter too. So. But, you know, I don't think there's a real rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Lighter color shingles versus darker shingles.
Right.
Possibly makes a similar kind of difference.
Okay. So the last item, we had on there was just something that I had added. I attended a, ADU conference, put on by the Affordable Housing, group. And one of the comments, discussed was that the energy, you know, efficiency requirements for new ADU construction was actually, working against the desirability of creating these units for affordable housing. So I just wanted to kind of get your, you know, input on that and see if you had any thoughts on it.
I had not heard of the issue before you put it on the agenda.
Yeah, okay.
I looked into it a little bit,
Mhm.
with my chatbot, you know, and it seems like there's an issue there, you know, it raises some, upfront construction costs. It's balanced somewhat by lower operating costs. I think it's good to try and reduce the costs, all the different costs that go into building an ADU,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure what action we might be looking to take.
Yeah, so
with
when
respect to energy.
we adopted the stretch code, right, or? could we-
Yes.
Well, yeah, that was adopted
Town meeting.
for
Yeah.
green communities.
Yeah, so the comment was made, and I wasn't able to follow up because it was a remote, but that there are state requirements in place. But that local requirements, you know, can be above and beyond that, obviously, so I didn't know whether we had something above and beyond state requirements that could be. I mean, and Chris had an experience with his ADU of the, you know, energy conservation costs, really bumping up the overall cost. So just curious.
I believe there was the stretch code update for the new version, 2024, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure what it might have said before, but I know that it now explicitly mentions EDUs.
mhm,
It talks about an energy rating that it needs to qualify for.
Mhm.
It's a more forgiving, somewhat less demanding rating than for a standard house. So it provides, you know, less requirements than it would for other buildings.
mhm.
But it probably is possibly a new requirement as of, you know, 2024.
Okay, so not necessarily a local.
It's not a local requirement.
Did you have any?
Even how to explain it all. I just finished my ADU, because I had my house and I had I call it a barn, but it was actually my cabinet shop for many years.
An existing detached building.
Correct, it was roughly 1,500 feet on the first floor and probably 1,000-foot loft on the second floor. I got a special permit to go to 1,400 square feet instead of 900 square foot.
Okay,
And was totally stunned by the cost of complying with the energy requirements. And Sam explained some of them due to the stretch code and some of them due to state regulations. Now, this building had full fiberglass insulation in it, wall ceilings, everything, tight as a button, had Anderson casement windows, had drywall in it. Cost me between $450 and $550 a year to heat it at 55 degrees, so less than when you were living in it.
yeah, right.
Once you take out the building permit, you've got to hire a HERS rater.
Yeah.
Who specifies everything. I had a brand new, 2-year-old, new oil fired boiler in there, literally brand new. Because of the HERS ratings having to comply with the energy requirements, that became junk. So I took the boiler, gave it away. Took the oil tank, had to give that away. $32,000 heat pump had to be put in to heat the place. All the insulation had to go out. They claim that that's not, fiberglass isn't any good. You gotta pull that out, put $20,000 of spray foam in. All the windows, because they didn't have a certification label, they were Anderson casements, they were beautiful. All had to get pulled out. I'm talking, so by the time I got done with, again, this is a retro, you know, if you did a new building, you still have to do either fiberglass at one number or spray foam, but there's still a bump in spray foam, it's very expensive. So the cost to comply with energy code regulations on my building were over $80,000. And everybody came in, the HERS radar, said one of the tightest buildings they've ever seen. Sam, everybody looked at, you're gonna heat this place with a match. Well, my November bill was extraordinary, and my December bill was almost $600 to heat it. Now, my house, I heat with propane, I can do, it's twice the size of this unit. I heat that for about $250 a month. So there is no magical savings, and the cost up front is extraordinary. And had I known it was gonna cost, I would have never done this project if I'd known that that's the cost to comply with the current energy codes. So if somebody would ask me, I would say, get some hard numbers ahead of time, because you're gonna be shocked at what compliance will cost. Even if you did a new ground up structure, there's still gonna be a huge bump. I mean, you could put in a forced hot air, oil, I know that's, everybody thinks that's the devil when you talk oil. For about a third of what an electric heat pump system costs. So there are huge additional costs to complying with the energy regulations on these projects, so. I found out the hard way.
Do you know if that was true for other ADUs in West Newbury? Did Sam have any insight as to whether other people had the same?
Fire.
I'm just curious.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody had some.
Mm.
Did you get an incentive on the heat pump installation?
We're in the process of debating that currently, because it's in an ADU, it's not your primary residence.
Oh,
The HERS company filed for it, it's in process, they're gonna put a 45-day hold on it, and then debate, it's again, it was supposed to be a $10,000 rebate on it, and they go, well, you might get 7,500. We'll see, I don't have an answer yet. That still doesn't offset the delta, and I'm actually having the manufacturer of the unit coming out next week, because nobody can figure out why it's costing that much to heat the place, it's insane. The other thing, and I don't know if people know, but when you tighten up the building, put the heat, you make the building so tight, you have to bring in cold air from the outside to make up and blend with the air, like, that's insane. So all I can figure out is maybe there's a miscalculation in the balance of the air they're bringing in and the system there's something, I'm hoping there's something off with the system.
yeah.
It's just staggering.
So, the Affordable Housing Trust is planning on, doing some kind of, event about building ADUs as, affordable housing. So, I mean, if there's an opportunity, we'd be looking for input from your committee on ways to try to, deal with the stretch code requirements, or any kind of suggestions to help people. So,
Okay.
but that's, a month or two away, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll give it some thought. I'm not sure off the top of my head what.
Yeah,
we
but
need
if
to
you,
have.
if you think of anything or come across anything, if you could let me know, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
I'd be curious to your point though, too, with Sam, that other people have the same experience. I
Yeah.
think there've been 6 or 7 ADUs
Yeah, that's what I
completed.
heard, yeah.
I know most of them, but I don't know the people, so I can't ask them directly with Sam. That'd be good information to have.
Mhm. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, are we done?
Next item is, review of. Annual report office. Did you get that, Chris? Right, okay.
I knew this was from Wendy, so even though it was day of the meeting,
Oh,
I
you
printed it and read it, so that
I do have hard copies if either form.
I got hard copies marked up.
All right, so I just went through all the agendas and, try to highlight things that I feel like were either really time consuming or, really important that the select board was involved in. So I don't intend to have all this in the report, but I just wanted.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
First of all, what date, I know it says fiscal year 25, so what dates does that run from?
July 1, 24 through June 30th, 25. Yeah, so this is going back,
Yeah, my mind can't even wrap around the
Yeah.
past dates like that.
yeah,
July 1st of 24,
4.
yeah.
When did you join the board? Was that your first year?
It's 23.
Yeah,
Oh, 23, yeah.
I still didn't keep track of any of it though. So, okay. I just a thought I had, and I hate to make a suggestion and then just say you do it, but the answer is no. If we keep a log, as we're in the moment,
That would be better than,
an annual report log,
yeah,
plug in after each meeting, any topics.
I think that's a good, oh, you're not the clerk, right? I was gonna say that's a good clerk.
Ross, You got that? Okay. All in favor, because he's not here?
Well, you keep copious notes, can't you just jot down for each meeting what?
No, after I review the minutes, I wrote them.
All right, it's your idea, so I think you.
I said at the very beginning, I wasn't gonna do
All right, what
Okay.
about what's here? I mean, collective bargaining, that was a huge time commitment, right?
that. Yeah, but I mean, I should put it in there, but not, people don't care.
Well, this is our chance to document what, you know. how-
Yeah, that was,
Four unions at the same.
but no, well, water's not in there at that
Well,
point.
it was, we started dealing with the IBW.
It was in August of 24, so I think it,
Mhm.
oh, yeah.
Okay, either way, the three that we did, highway was reasonable and simple, but there would, yeah, a ton of time. I mean, the people would not understand how much time. So yes, okay.
I think the water issues is a big thing, because we did the survey and then the
A lot.
site. We need the Artichoke Basin watershed, but I mean, we did put a lot of time to reviewing that and going to the meeting and providing.
We did,
input.
yes, I mean,
Oh, so on behalf of the board.
I know, but I looked at it,
The comments of many others, including Concom. and-
that's right, had the one fellow, but all, yeah, okay,
And Jeff Garrison.
yeah.
I think the engagement of other boards and committees, I think we did a lot with that, you know, just the work planning with the chairs and then all these joint meetings we had with other boards and committees.
And I put on that as a second, also, but, pulling the work plan together and making that the priority, that should be part of that, because I think we want boards and committees to understand that's how we're moving forward,
Yeah,
and that became an issue at that point in time.
the MVP grant, I mean, this covers actually the warrant article to get the 60,000 in support. It was kind of interesting actually going back and looking at the progression of that, so. I mean, that did take up a lot of meeting time. I don't know if you wanna highlight that or not,
Nah, I put that small print.
okay. Did you share the email from Michelle with? Bruce?
No.
Okay, we can do that. I think these, I don't know what to call it, property rights, but I mean, these all
Property issues, but yeah,
property issues, yeah.
and those were, people have no idea how much time those took, and again, a lot of that's on you. I see the quote in Lane Parking, it's like, geez.
I think this, you know, using working groups, that was fairly new and really successful, so I think it's worth highlighting that.
I very much so, especially the success of the MBTA group, I thought was huge.
Yeah. And the bylaws, both the dog and the right to farm happened in that period, which were. A lot of meetings. MBTA outreach, which I mean, that could be combined with the working group, I guess. Page school conditions assessment, I mean, the select board didn't do that much work on it, but I think, you know, it's one of our top priorities.
I think you keep it highlighted, yeah.
Okay.
And the public meeting was great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Municipal aggregation happened, but that was kind of in spite of us, not really because of us. I don't know, do you agree with that? Do you wanna highlight that?
I don't think it was in spite of us, we were in favor.
No, but I mean, it's not like it was town staff that were the ones that were carrying the load on that, but.
So you can put a little kudos to town staff and to the Energy Resiliency Committee on that. You know, I think it should be highlighted, you don't have to take the credit for it, give it to them.
All right. The new audit firm, that was, ARPA spending, there was a lot, I mean, I can go back and detail them, is that something you wanna highlight? There's just a lot of.
Just so you know, we do have on the finance drive, we have a very succinct
Okay.
list with the numbers and the dates and we got everything, so you don't need to,
Okay,
that's something I can send you. Yeah,
okay, do you wanna highlight that, or?
Well, relative to the ARPA funding was at the bridge, because that was in the time frame. I think we started on the
Yeah.
bridge,
Yeah.
and the bridge isn't mentioned.
Well, I consider that, but really, I don't feel like the select board did much on the bridge, that was all Angus and.
I think including ARPA and reporting on how the money was spent, because that was all under the select board's
Yeah,
direction.
yeah, if you could. send
And
me that
I
list.
think, I don't know if it was within that fiscal year, but you know, it helped with the cost of the page HVAC
Mhm.
and obviously the bridge, the Church and Prospect. There were no, you know, in fact, this the actuarial study for the retiree that was funded out.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, if you could send me the.
Yeah, I will send you that list.
But I don't think, we did have time into the bridge, and I remember executive sessions talking about strategy on how to accomplish that, so it's,
Okay,
I mean, again, give credit to them, but I think it should be noted that that was part of the work that occurred in that timeframe.
okay. And then I don't know what to say about the public health IMA, that did take a lot of time, but.
We didn't do anything.
Yeah,
I would kill that one.
All right, anything else that I didn't capture here? That you
No.
had?
I'm not sure if it was in the time frame, but the Whittier, I don't know when the presentation was, but then the engagement of Angus and I going to these meetings to start
That
all
was,
that.
yeah,
I would put down just,
okay,
dump that in with schools if you want, to
I
patient.
think, wasn't that vote in like January,
January.
February of 2024?
yeah.
So I think that's
Before
more of
that.
an FY24 issue. I mean, there was continuing work.
But then we were on the ad hoc committee, is what I'm saying.
That's right,
Pushing
yeah.
it forwards. I would just say, Whittier engagement, exploration of
Yeah,
a regional
definitely.
agreement.
What about when he did and I don't know within the calendar where this fell, but the whole issue of the Rocks Village Bridge and working with MassDOT on the signage, and the striping and, we didn't get their endorsement of the armoring of the bridge until this fiscal year.
Mhm.
But I feel like Rocks Village Bridge,
I don't remember seeing that, but,
No, the signage and the arrows and all that, it potentially was in that.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Okay.
Also, I don't know. I don't want to bring it up, never mind.
what? That's why I'm asking, because it went,
The weight restriction on River Road? No. Agreed? Not my lips.
yeah,
I said, I'm gonna bring it up.
if you wanna put it in.
Nope.
Put it in. Okay. All right. Good, so how far past the deadline are we next?
Keep track.
Okay.
What's this do?
When was it due? July, December.
Well, and
31st.
just in fairness, Max had sent me a draft back in the early fall.
Mhm.
I was thinking it was one more thing for the board, so I thought I was gonna kind of take ownership of it and then, it's, so I should have shared it with you guys a couple of months ago, so. You guys aren't late, I was late on that, so just if it makes anyone feel any better, in my role on the Economic Development Committee, Road, I just got an email from the town clerk today. To all committee members, inviting town reports by February 20th, so.
For FY25,
They're just getting started, so.
so we're doing great.
Yeah, compared to growth.
All right. Next item is an update on the organizational assessment, vendor feedback. So I connected with two potential vendors. One, I was really enthused about. This, what was the name of it? Community Paradigm. The principal that I spoke with, their business model is he has a stable of professionals, and he pulls them together based on a project, and he was talking about somebody that had previously been a town manager, the first town manager coming into a town and having to put all the systems in place, so he thought that might be a good fit for us, but he said the scope looked great, that he wouldn't have changed anything on it, so and he's aware that procurement requirements would be in place, so so good, I mean, that's what I have so far, so I don't know about we had kind of toyed with starting the procurement before town meeting, that feels ambitious to me, given the other procurement things that are going on, but if we plan to start like May 1. Seemed like a reasonable timeframe. I think the scope or the scope I had was June 1. But I don't know that we need to wait beyond that.
I'm fine with whatever
Yeah,
you're on the driver's seat on this.
okay. All right, that was it. Next item is preview of known or anticipated articles for spring town meeting, and somehow we have 46 articles. So again,
We were, Rebecca and I put this together and we kept them. We didn't think we were gonna be this many, and this is just 2 weeks before.
right, so it's.
This is just what's on our radar, this doesn't account for everything that may come our way, so.
So I wanna propose again, combining some of these, like, other towns have like one capital item.
Yeah.
One article for capital
They
items
do.
and list them all. We could combine transfers potentially.
Yeah.
Funding for the water, those two things could be in one article. What do you think of it? I think in the past, Chris, you've saed you didn't favor combining.
Does it save you much time, really? I don't know.
I feel like it does. You think of the time to read, how many capital items?
Yeah, I don't think it's so much the time at town meeting. I think there is some time savings. I think it's more of the process.
Right.
Because we schedule, I mean, you know, there's, for each one, there's article request form, there's a separate recommendation, there's separate rationale. There's a multiplier effect as you go through. And I know when I'm working with the FinCom chair to schedule their reviews of sections of the budget and articles, it's like daunting if there's like 15 articles one night. No, that's too many. We gotta keep it to 8 or whatever it is. So if you start consolidating some of them, you're not changing the amount of content, but there is a multiplier effect, just the number of, you know, articles we're drafting, the number of motions, you know, the record keeping aspect of it, because every one of these, we have a shared server drive that we're populating backup, and I've favored the idea of consolidated capital articles for years.
Oh, you have, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I proposed it last year, and you didn't think that.
No, I like it. I do think we have to be concerned about how it will be received. And whether.
Isn't it
people-
like the budget though?
Yeah, it's presented, the way I've seen it in other towns' warrants, it's on a single page. It looks a lot like the operating budget. This is the capital budget for the year, and it itemizes each expense, and it would be reviewed the same way as the budget, where people could put a hold on an item. But at the end of the day, there's taking a single vote to appropriate funds for the items listed and the amounts listed based on the sources listed, because the capital budget can have some coming from capital stabilization, some coming from water retained earnings, or some coming from town stabilization. It's a detailed document that has all that detail.
So it would be a matter of public education around this before town meetings, so that people.
Yeah, and making sure that the FinCom booklet has the full detail and justification that people are used to seeing.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris? Are you willing to give it a go?
Go ahead. I think it conflicts with Elisa's comment the other night. If you need to have more information, you sort of give it a shot.
I don't think it's not less information. It's a formatting issue, and it's a procedural issue. It's something,
I don't think the voters at the town meeting will have a problem.
I don't think the voters will. I think there are individuals who will. But I think
That's what I was
most
sort
people,
of saying.
I feel like get a little exasperated when it's like, wait, we just voted a mower, and now we're voting a trailer, and now we're voting a police crew. Like people, I think they roll their eyes a little bit and say, geez, this is the most inefficient thing. So I think if we can make it more efficient without sacrificing any transparency, I think it's a pure win. I do think there are individuals who will have concerns, but
Let's give it a try and find out.
lots of towns do it,
Yeah.
and I think it's a much better way to do it.
Okay. Any questions on any of these, Chris?
They'll be premature until we get to them, I guess. You know,
Okay.
I see CPA, Cameron Park Walkways, and I saw something on an email on that, but last week we said there were no CPA requests, so I was curious.
From this board, no CPA request from the select board.
Page school windows, that'll be a whole nother discussion we get for that, because I know they were replaced with a green grant years ago, and a disaster.
All right. Good.
All right,
So,
so we'll keep a running list, and if you become aware of anything, whether it's gonna happen or not, but just so it's on our radar, let us know. That does remind me, you know, at a staff level, we were talking about, I know it wouldn't be a warrant article, but the whole issue of Brick Hill Terrace and the potential petition to put that on a ballot. I don't know if we have any expectation of whether that's,
I haven't heard anything from
yeah.
the proponents, but
Okay. So, cause my concern is that language is, and then next fall, when it's like, yeah, we're not plowing, and then it becomes a big thing, so. It shouldn't surprise anybody, it's been
Yeah.
well documented and discussed quite a bit, but
I will reach out and just.
I don't want to creep up on people and.
Good.
You know, if someone did want to make a real push for the town to accept it, you know, they could put in a citizen petition article.
Okay,
I'm not saying that's what they should do, but
right. Okay, budget schedule, it's good.
yeah, so one thing I wanted to just pick up a little bit on the discussion at last week's meeting about whether there's more we can do to make, we pass those down, to kind of bring more attention to the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And you know, I think we do a lot, but I made Rebecca aware that back when I started, they used to do something like this, the board, and they've done this for a few years. It was a very kind of at a glance snapshot of the process.
Mhm.
So I've been working with Rebecca. This is just a draft. I got this today. I made a couple of edits. And I think it's coming along, but I think it needs a little more attention before I would want to put it out there.
Mhm.
But the idea was to have something that's more visual. Because, you know, what I put in the packet is something that went around to all department heads and, you know, board, commission, committee chairs as part of the budget, but, you know, people like glaze over, and it doesn't have full retail now. We do a separate schedule that we will publish coming out of next Wednesday, the FinCom meets. And I'll work with them to pin down specific dates, and then I work with department heads and board, commission, committee chairs to get different departments scheduled for different dates over the course of, typically there are 5 meetings in February, March. Once we have those, we do a separate sheet. You probably remember from prior cycles, it's a legal size sheet, and it includes all the FinCom dates and every topic that will be discussed per date. Once we have that, we publicize that widely. We'll do the same thing that we do every year on that, in addition to this. We haven't been doing this for the last 6 years, and what I told Rebecca was, in my opinion, this wasn't an intentional decision not to do it so much as it was, there was a lot of staffing turnover at that time, and just no one did it.
Mhm.
So if you think something like this would be helpful, I don't think we're far off from having this to where it's good. The only real concern that I have is, and we try to cover this with these big blocks, that say, you know, articles will be discussed at each select board meeting, at each FinCom meeting, because I know Rebecca's had some inquiries from member of the public of like, you know, when will it, and she said, the FinCom will meet many times in February and March and into April. Every meeting will include discussion of the budget. Every meeting will include articles. Like, that's the process. So the best advice to people is to watch the posted agendas, look at the packets, come to the meetings. That's the best advice we can give people. So I don't want to put in something that in any way constrains either this board's or the FinCom's ability to follow the process where it leads, and that may mean scheduling extra meetings. It may, I mean, you know, from the past, well, it's customary, that's always the goal, and we 99% of the time meet this goal of getting all of the article recommendations into the booklet, published at least 2 weeks ahead of town meeting. 99% of the time that happens. The select board and the FinCom both have the ability to present a recommendation on the floor of town meeting. They could meet the night of town meeting and vote a recommendation and present it later that night, fully within their authority to do that. So I don't want to do anything that implies to the public that couldn't happen. It could happen. So that's where something like this, I think if we issue it in good faith, great. But if people start trying to like split hairs, like all we're trying to do is be transparent. The legislative process, which is what town meeting has got twists and turns.
Mhm.
Things can change.
I don't think it's a big twist and turn. I think, and you've hit it every time I've been around, that booklet 2 weeks in advance is plenty of notice. Cause you see 80% of the people come into the meeting, grab the booklet, start scrolling through it there.
Mm.
So it's been out for 2 weeks at the food mart, the post office, the town hall. They can avail themselves of picking that up and reading it, but they don't.
Mhm.
But would it be possible for each FinCom meeting where budget and articles are discussed to send out an email blast saying FinCom meeting tonight?
Yeah.
X, Y, Z? I mean, maybe that's one way to
Yeah.
just, you're right, people should take responsibility, but if we can help them be aware, then maybe that's an option.
There's a calendar on the front page of the website.
Mhm.
Every day it tells you when there's a meeting.
Not that there's a meeting, but what's gonna be covered. So like,
If you tap on it, it brings up the agendas.
I'm just saying this might be an easy way to send emails to people.
That's
It's
fine.
not a lot of effort for town staff, it could have some.
I don't think that's fine, go ahead and do it. I don't think you'll see a significant difference.
Maybe not, but if we're looking for ways to address the concern that voters are not informed.
So one thing, and I mentioned it before, and so Lisa's comments last week sort of hammered it home. And I was very bothered at the fall town meeting. A lot of the articles got read and there was no presentation. And I said, I think anybody's gonna put in a request for an article, better be prepared at town meeting to stay after it's read, stand up and explain it. I was thinking just the other day that we go through, whether it's an article or MBTA housing, whatever, we deal with it week in, week out. And you take it for granted that everybody knows what it is. They don't.
Mhm.
You'd be walking downtown and somebody said, what's going on? You mentioned one thing and they had no idea. So I think if somebody is looking to have an article on the warrant, they 100% better be prepared to stand up and explain it to the residents, why it's there, what the impacts are, and be ready to answer questions. Because I think we had way too many last time. There was no presentation. It just was read and voted. That was kind of strange. And I think that's sort of to Lisa's point.
Mhm.
You know, people are just raising hands and voting. It was kind of, I guess it was good they passed, because, you know, I hope the residents understand that you know, it goes through Angus, it goes through Jenny, it goes through FinCom, Select Board, and everybody's seen it, and we're doing our best, but you'd like to have them be fully informed at the town meeting. But yeah, if you want to do the email blast, that's fine. It's
I can't think of anything else to do. We're not gonna, produce another booklet of information 2 weeks prior to the FinCom booklet.
No, but and you could, I mean, you couldn't, we use every single hour between.
well, it'd be dangerous to do it, because whatever you put out a month in advance is gonna be junk.
Yeah,
And then when the 2-week one comes up, well, why did that change?
right, yeah.
Because we had
Much worse, right,
I think it would create more disruption
It
than
would.
anything.
it would.
I like your idea of, and maybe, how do we communicate that it's a requirement to?
As they come in, I'm gonna tell everybody, if
Okay.
you want this article on the warrant, you better be ready to present and to back it up and to answer questions at town meeting.
Mhm.
I'll tell every single one of them.
Okay.
I mean, some people like, you know, Butch, he knows, he didn't explain, it's like, did everybody just do it that simply?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, I guess we need to do it too, because we, the majority of the articles, we don't all explain it.
But we're articles that somebody put up for us and we're just, yeah,
Some of them.
some of that.
I mean, that is something when we're putting together the warrant and, you know, it says sponsored by, what I've done is, so let's say, you know, let's say Butch or Brian brings forward an article. They're bringing it forward, but once you endorse it, I've been listing that as sponsored by the select board, because at that point, it's your warrant and you're putting it on there with your recommendation. We could say sponsored by highway superintendent, sponsored by facilities manager or whatever. And if you go back to some from 7 or 8 years ago, I think they probably were, you'll see more different sponsors, whereas, you know, I just feel like I said, once the board endorses an article and it is your warrant, you're sponsoring it. So that's something that's partly a semantic issue in terms of how the warrant's written. But even if we continue to do that and show the board sponsoring things, you could certainly, you know, assign to who's really the prime mover behind it. Which is, you know, often gonna be Butch or Brian or me or Jenny or someone who's actually like, or obviously committee. Who's actually like wrote the article request form and was the kind of prime mover in the first place.
Yeah, I feel like COVID is when some of that changed, because we were trying to move through the articles quickly and had one select board member read them all, you know. I remember before that, you know, town staff that were sponsoring.
And Casey's been pushing for that too. I agree with her, so.
So that's another.
I mean, I also like it though, if in terms of how the warrant is written, let's say, you know, let's say the warrant said there's a new plow truck and it's sponsored by the highway superintendent. And I'm talking about the warrant, not the booklet.
Yeah.
When they see the booklet, they're gonna say, oh, the select board favorably recommended 3-0 and FinCom 5-0 and so forth. But if they're just reading the warrant, all they're seeing is $280,000 sponsored by the highway superintendent. They may come away from that saying like, what does he need a new plow truck for?
Yeah.
Whereas if it says sponsored by select board, it shows this has been vetted. It doesn't mean people have to support it or not,
Mhm.
but I think it conveys a level of, you know, I don't know, validity is not the right word, but I think it presents differently to the casual reader who's not necessarily reading the booklet with the recommendations. They're just seeing, it seems kind of lonely to me to like, oh, sponsored by the highway superintendent. Never mind if you have a sponsor who's not a town resident. You know, I think that's a little squishy, like, you know, Butch and Brian happen to live here in town, but if, yeah, right, like, would you put sponsored by that person when they're not even like.
We can deal with those on an individual basis. I
Yeah.
just think we got kind of sloppy last meeting with some of them that got read and there was no presentation.
Mhm.
And Casey's kind of like looking around and, oh, the FinCom approved it and then voted. It was just,
So to your point, we can still have the warrant have sponsored by the select board.
Yeah.
But the person can read the motion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that would address both.
hopefully it'll address Elisa's issues because you're educating them a little more in the moment.
Yeah.
And also with Casey, which she said, it looks too much like everything is in one board, which I agree with too, so.
Well, one other thing I will say is, this goes back, you know, as long as I've been here. Every town meeting I've ever been to prior to West Newbury, PowerPoint slides were part of.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And here in West Newbury, the moderator does not favor the use of PowerPoint. She has allowed us the last couple of cycles to use it solely to have the article language up on the screen. In other towns, people give presentations within the 3 minutes, you know, it's all very tightly controlled in terms of timing. And, you know, I do think that that is something, and I believe that is up to the moderator, so I think it's gonna be her call. But I think that's something to talk about, because, if you're organized and you have your information tightly organized, which certainly you would by town meeting, I think that's a very effective way to communicate, you know, maybe it's a map, maybe it's an image, and I don't know, I think it's been kind of very conservative limiting that to the language in the warrant. And I think it's not been in the interest of public transparency. I don't think that's been her motivation. I mean, what she's described to me is like, oh, well, then there's a problem with the slides, and then someone has to connect a cord, and then there's 10 minutes and no one can figure out how, and I'm like, Casey, I was a professional consultant for 8 years. I've given hundreds and hundreds of presentations where I was bringing and setting up on the fly. And it's never been, like, if you're dealing with professionals, that is not going to be a problem.
Yeah, I think it's different, or it's the unknown, you know, but I think these are all good ideas to try to achieve what Lisa's comments were after, so.
But I will say once more, for those listening, in February, March, into early April, every select board meeting, every FinCom meeting is going to include issues related to town meeting.
Yeah.
And,
So are we contemplating them joint meetings again?
well, that would be a great thing to talk about. So FinCom's meeting next Wednesday. This is really focused on capital articles.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be good to have them. I mean, it's, you know, obviously a public meeting. I told them in all likelihood there'd be at least one board member there. But it's not gonna be posted as a joint meeting. And I think that's gonna be good for them to kind of continue to find their feet and find their identity, specifically in the capital review role. They've all been doing their one-on-one meetings and all of that, but I think that'll be really good next Wednesday. I'm also gonna, you know, make sure they bring their calendars so we can populate dates in February through March and probably into the first week of April for their meetings. So I can poll each of you as well.
Mhm.
I can send out an email tomorrow and just ask you each to provide any blackout dates that you have in those over the course of those 8 or 9 weeks.
Mhm.
And as many joint meetings as you want. I do know Dennis Lamalfa is very favorable to joint meetings.
Okay.
He thinks they're great.
Mhm.
And I think the committee agrees with that.
Mhm. Chris, are you up for that, doing that again?
Yeah, I don't, I think sometimes we get too aligned with them, but I think as far as for particularly staff, have to go to 2 different meetings, I think it's ridiculous, so I think it's better to have the one.
Well, I'm sure we can find ways to encourage disagreement if that's important to you.
No, but I just don't want everybody to, I think we just all got on the same page too easily, you know, whatever the issues. And again, hopefully we do, but.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so you can send a poll, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Are you interested in going to the FinCom meeting next week? I'm attending the Green Belt thing, so. You have to, just,
Maybe I have to check, I just wrote down, when is it? It's Wednesday?
is it at 6, Angus?
It is at 6, yep.
Look into it and see.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Let's see, so we've covered F and G, right? There's no correspondence. Future agenda items, I am gonna meet with, Deb and Jennifer Chastain about that, licensing agreement for the equestrian rings. So that'll be on a future agenda. I'm gonna work instead of, we're just gonna start over and craft a new agreement for that. For consideration by the select board. That's the only future item I know of that they may not be aware of. You wanna see?
Nothing further than what I put out last time.
Okay. All right, that concludes the open session. Business, I move to recess to executive session for MGL chapter 38, section 21A, 2 and 7.
Second,
All in favor, read aye.
why am I?
All right, the board has recessed to executive session. They will return to open session for the sole purpose of adjournment. Good night.